Hey guys, it's good to see you this weekend, and thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us for our new series, which is called Reach2020. And this is going to sound really familiar over the next couple months because the church as a whole is going to be working out and rolling out its Reach2020 capital campaign. And this campaign is a kind of as all joining forces together to raise money for a need within the church and reaching the vision that God has given us. And that's really to reach the unchurched and the marginally and non-religious. And one of the ways we found most effective to do that is through the planting of new campuses. And so over the next 5 years, our goal is to plant 5 more campuses and to be a part of that. And so in that, we're going to be talking about it as part of the vision of the church, and we want to be a part of that vision. We want to be a part of what the church is doing. And so as we launch this campaign, I wanted to make sure that we as a youth ministry and campus youth ministry have the opportunity to be a part of what the church is doing. So for the next several weeks, we're going to take part in that. We're going to learn about giving and how we can be a part of the vision of the church. Because we're really not an isolated part of the church, we really are part of the whole. And so this week, as we start this series, I want to begin by looking at the call to give and to be givers. I've once heard it said that God is a giver and a forgiver, and we want to emulate that part of God's nature. And not just givers, we don't just want to be givers, but like Jesus, like God, we want to be sacrificial givers. As many of you know, I have a 5-year-old son and a 5-month-old little girl, both of whom I love dearly. And I also have some nieces and nephews that are in that same age, and 2 of my nephews are actually 5, just like Kyron, and they're all best buds, and they love to play together, they love to do stuff together, they all live by each other. However, over the years, that playtime has yielded to a lot of tears and a lot of angst. And even to this day, when some of the younger kids, nieces and nephews, want to play with the big kids, there's often hurt feelings and emotions. And if you've ever watched kids, you know what I'm talking about. One of the most common things that we ever hear from the other room is the word mine or give me that back. And I'm sure you've all had that argument at some point or another. If you have siblings, you probably still have that argument about clothes or other things. And I remember the first time I ever stole something, and it was in the 1st grade, and my buddy Levi had a pencil that I really, really liked. And it was kind of that same thing where I was like, nope, it's mine. And I don't remember ever going and taking it. I just think I saw it around and I started using it and I began to really like it and I wanted to keep it. And it had Grimace, that purple guy from McDonald's. It had him on it, all over it. And when the teacher asked me about it, because the other guy said that it was his, I lied and said that my parents had gotten it for me at McDonald's. Levi said the same thing, but since I had the pencil and possession is 9/10 of the law, I got to keep it. And also because I was such a rule follower up to that point, my teacher had no reason not to believe me. So the point of both these stories is the fact that we're all born really selfish. And as we go along, it's really easy to let our wants, our desires, and our impulses be the thing that defines how we view stuff. I want it, I need it, it's mine. And in fact, really throughout our culture, we're trained to focus on this immediate gratification of our wants and our desires. We're all taught in different ways that it's all about us. I mean, think about it. And I'm not trying to be the grumpy old guy that's complaining about culture, but if you really think about your life and your world, the truth is that it's all centered about ensuring that your needs are met, that you're made to feel comfortable and entertained and entitled. And because of this, we're really not trained to look beyond ourselves, to look at the needs of others, especially those whose needs are different than ours. This came to a really hard truth to me a couple years ago. Actually, it was a long time ago, and it was in a land far away. And that's not like hyperbole. It was actually a long time ago, and it was actually in a land far away, if you call Alabama far away. But it was about a year and a half after Hurricane Katrina. So it was about 11 to 12 years ago, before many of you were even born. And if you remember Hurricane Katrina at all, it was about 13 plus years ago, and I remember right after it happened, you couldn't turn on the TV and not hear about it. It was sad for the people, and I was really upset, but the truth was that after I turned off the TV and I gave my money, I felt like I had done my part, right? And after the giving drive stopped, and after the news stopped reporting it, it really didn't pop up on my radar any longer. And then I went down to spend some time with one of my mentors in Mobile, Alabama. And as we got talking and we got driving along the coast, I realized that even though the news had stopped reporting about it, and the charities had stopped taking money for it, and I had forgotten all about it. Years later, these people's lives were still in shambles and still devastated. Houses were still in pieces lying on the ground. Shelters were still packed. Homes were still destroyed. Lives were still turned upside down. But it wasn't even on my radar because it wasn't my reality. And for much of the Bible, this is the point that God's trying to get across to his people. He was trying to get them to see that there's more going on than just their little world. And there's people that have needs outside of their own. And in these people in need, we have a responsibility for them. Whether our realities line up with theirs or whether they don't, we're called to take care of the poor, the outcasts, the needy, the other people around us. And this is what God was asking of them, and the fact that they often forgot was a major deal to God. He didn't like that they were missing the needs of the others. And the thing about Jesus, as Jesus came on the scene, is that he completely carries on this mindset and turns our mindset upside down as well. He says the first will be last, the greatest will be the servant of all. And the thing about Jesus is that he was constantly moved by compassion for people around him. He was moved to do something because he felt their need. He felt their pain, and then he did something about it, what he could do about it. And Jesus called his disciples to even be part of that giving. In fact, not only did he call them to give, but he called them really to do it so privately. He told them in Matthew 6, if you do it for recognition, then you've already received your reward. You've already gotten what you're going to get out of it. Giving is simply an act between you and God, but it's also an act inspired by God. And the fact that Jesus told them in this passage, when you give, do it this way, really implies the expectation was that they would give. And the thing is, that call carries on to us today. You're called to give as well. And the truth is that throughout the Bible, the call to the followers of God was constant. It was to give, to see your blessings and to see the needs of others and help those two things come together and give of yourself, care for those that have less than you. Giving was actually meant to be commonplace in the life of the followers of Jesus. Much of the early church was actually defined by their sacrificial giving. Acts 4, it says that it was because of their generosity that there was no need among them. They sold everything. They gave everything to meet the needs of the less fortunate. The truth about this is that giving this way is not natural. It's not easy, and it really isn't our default. We're not wired that way naturally to sell all of our possessions to help other people. But the thing is that in 2 Corinthians, Paul's talking to the church there, and he reminds us that we're all called to give, but he also reminds us that it shouldn't be impulsive. It shouldn't be that we're feeling guilt or anything like that to give, but it should be something that we do willingly, that we be very logical about, and that we make a commitment and that we carry through with this. And Paul's also talking to the church in Corinth. He talked a lot about giving to the church of Corinth. And he says this, he said, if I give everything I have to the poor, and if I've even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it. But if I didn't love others, and if I didn't do it out of a place of love, then I would have gained nothing. Giving is a discipline that God asks us to do, and from a place of a heart to give, not just simply, I have to do it. But also it's one that's so focused on love for other people, about feeling the needs of others. Because even the largest gift, not given with love, means nothing, Paul says. We give because we love. We give out of a place of love is the call. And the truth is that Jesus really demonstrated this love by giving of his life on our behalf, and giving that isn't connected or tied to something financially. It was giving of his life. And in the same way, our giving isn't tied to those same realities. Your giving can look like your time or your efforts and your energy, your skills. What matters is that you're doing it out of love and that you're seeing the felt need of others outside of your own and doing something about it. The Bible says that Jesus sent the disciples out after he saw these needs to meet the needs of the other people. He said, go meet those needs, do something about it. Not for the praise and attention of man, but to please the heart of God. See, the thing is, and if you hear nothing else, hear this today. God has called us, his people, to see the needs of others and give generously out of a place of love. So the question today, and I just want to ask this, is what's one way that maybe you've missed the point and made your life about you instead of giving generously to others? What in your life have you made about your comfort, and in doing so may have missed the needs that other people have around you? And what can you do about it? What can you give What can, of your time, your talents, your needs, your finance, what's one way that you can give to meet those other people's needs? What's one way this week that you can impact a life around you, whether it be at school, at home, or in your neighborhood? Do something about a need this week. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.